Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to 3 Buck Theater. And this video is going to be interesting because some of you out there, it's going to come across as like a defense of a particular show that's just been canceled. When in reality, it's more of a open conversation about what I personally think would be the better course of action. This is my channel. I can give my opinion. And of course, the big news I feel of the day is that Cops has been canceled over at Paramount Network. Now, this doesn't mean that Cops itself is canceled. It actually belongs to another production company who can then shop it around. Originally, back in, I don't know, 1989, it was on Fox. And then it's moved from network to network to network. Now, over at Paramount, they have decided in the wake of the George Floyd situation to pull the plug on the show and to not renew it for another season. Now, whether or not the show ends up getting picked up elsewhere, I don't know. Probably on OANN, simply because that feels like the one network where they probably would put it out there. But the show itself is problematic. I just want to be abundantly clear on that front before we go into this. The show is reality TV. It's not real. It's heavily edited. The people involved are coerced into signing waivers so they can show themselves. And then they might get a bit of a stipend from it. They might get a bit of a bit of a thing here or a bit of a thing there, but it's still at the end of the day reality TV. When you watch reality television, you are not seeing reality. You are seeing it through the lens of a producer, through the lens of a director, through the lens of a creative team, through the lens of an editor. You are not getting the whole story. You are getting what they show you, condensed down into, in this particular case, 22 minutes of entertaining, supposedly nonfiction following of a police unit as they apprehend suspects and they do the day in and day out of being a cop. Now, what's interesting about this whole move, canceling of the show, is that it is kind of a bad move. It is. It's a bad move in my opinion, because this would be a time for not only the producers of the show and Paramount Network to show that they are actively listening to what's happening and use their platform as a way to actually discuss the situation, to actually work on the situation by providing a platform for those conversations to take place and perhaps maybe actually doing the right thing. The problem, though, and I'll be fair, this is the problem, and not just with Cops, but this is just a problem with reality. If it ain't sexy, no one's going to watch it. If it doesn't, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. That is a saying in journalism. That is true. You have to go where people want you to go. And we see that now more and more and more and more and more. What you have right now is a bunch of civil unrest over a situation that was entirely avoidable. I'm perfectly happy with the charges levied against the officer whose name I forget right now in the George Floyd death. And I'm waiting to see what happens when it goes to trial, probably sometime later this year or next year. And I understand that a lot of people out there want shows like Cops and Live PD, which was on A&E, to be pulled. They want them to be canceled. They want to not glorify police brutality or glorify the police in any way, shape, or form. But we're not only seeing just that. What we're seeing right now is the tip of that whole movement. Because with Paramount canceling the show in order to capitulate to where things are, and I say this because it comes to me, it rings as hollow. You know, it just rings as hollow to me. To be fair, it does. And I think to a lot of you out there, you know, it's like all those brands and corporations that are talking about this whole situation, all going, you know, black on their social media for a day. And you're like, oh, that's good, inclusivity, but no one really buys it. It's a bottom line for them. And that really is the case. And the same with Paramount. It's a bottom line. Do they want to have the negative association of working with the show Cops? And they obviously chose not to do it. But I feel the producers and Paramount would be in a good position right now to lead the change, perhaps, to lead the conversation. But that ain't sexy. It ain't. And that's just the fact. That's the truth. I hate to tell you guys. It ain't sexy. It ain't sexy to watch someone, you know, peacefully de-escalate a situation, which, by the way, most likely when they're filming Cops, after all those hours of following around an officer, they probably have about, 99 times of peaceful resolution versus like that one time where it's sexy and it ends up going in the show. Now that show ends up creating a false idea, a false identity of what officers engage in. All the videos coming out of police officer brutality or violence obviously is not the over the top norm. I'm not going to disagree that there's not several instances of it that should not happen. But this is where we can't have these conversations. These conversations, like you ultimately, I heard someone say this the other day. How can you fix something if you're not allowed to have a conversation about why it's broken? And that's kind of how I view this response from Paramount. How can you fix it if you run away? It's like, what was it? Alexis Ohanian, right? The guy who co-founded Reddit just stepped down the other day because he wants to, like, you know, be there for his daughter who's half black. And I totally get that. And I totally understand that. But I'm like, how can you lead if you get out of the way? That's not being there. That's taking the easy way out. That's washing your hands of it and thinking you've done something good. It's pointless, useless virtue signaling, which is what this entire move by Paramount Network is. It's what a lot of these companies have done. And I'm a liberal person. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. I support smaller government. I support fewer police. I support more money going in to mental health education and to train officers in de-escalation tactics 100%. I do. I fully believe those things. But I'm also a pragmatist and a person who pays attention to the world around me. I'm a person who pays attention to what's going on. I'm a person who reads the news every single day, who's on social media every single day, and has seen this stuff play out all up and down the West Coast because I've lived in almost every major city on the West Coast. I've seen this stuff happen. You do not fix a problem by not talking about it. If we were to take this situation to, let's say, like a marriage counselor, we would, you know, generally speaking, there would be like that back and forth in the beginning, and then the conversation would shut down because, you know, an unmovable object hits an unstoppable force or is hit by an unstoppable force. You can't just, there's nothing you can do with it because people aren't willing to compromise in order to come to the table to have the conversation. And that's what this whole thing with cops kind of boils down to. It's just corporate virtue signaling that doesn't benefit anybody. And at the end of the day, the more these shows are killed, the more people's livelihoods are taken away. The more people lose their jobs during a global pandemic. You see what I mean? There's enough fallout from this that you should question whether or not it's the right call. I think they'd be better off trying to take the platform and spin it into something more positive. But like I said before, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. And quite frankly, these shows rely on that in order to get people watching, in order to keep people watching and to keep the ad revenue coming in. And if you don't believe me, look at YouTubers. Look at how many of them go absolutely negative or crazy all the time. Everything's the end of the world. The end is nigh. The end is nigh. The end is nigh. And you're like, but it's the Captain Marvel movie, man. It's not that big of a deal. Of course it's not that big of a deal. But they do it because it bleeds and it leads and they make a lot of money. And then they'll tell you that they make a lot of money off of it. Now, just so we're abundantly clear, in no way, shape, or form does that situation have anything really to do with what's going on right now in the country. And the two are not comparable, nor am I making that comparison. I'm merely using it as an example for why people you watch in this entertainment punditry space do what they do. Now, would you rather them be canceled, or would you rather them have a conversation and maybe have some truth and some honesty and then see what comes from that? I'm definitely of the latter, not the former. But I do want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your interpretations on this. I want to know what you guys have to say. I want to hear it. I'm sure there's going to be mixed emotions across the board, and I appreciate you listening to me prattle on for 10 minutes about it. This is obviously an issue that is nuanced. It is not something that can be solved in a tweet or a YouTube video or a pointless virtue signal from a major billion-dollar company that's just trying to save face in the trades. Change can happen. We all want change to happen. We all want to be able to live free and happy and safe in this country. We might have different ideals and how to get there, but at the end of the day, all roads lead to the same outcome for the vast majority of people. The problem is everyone wants to talk over everybody else because that's how they get attention. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Banning Cops, the TV show, or banning cops in real life won't solve the problem. It's a pointless band-aid on a bullet hole. And I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great night. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Peace out.